Hello everyone, this is Vinay here from Learn Coding with Vinay, and this is video number 3 of our series where we are going over two important and essential concepts of SQL, and those are store procedures and joins. Right. In the previous video, we saw store procedure example of get all customers. Right. In this video, we will be looking into the insert and update customer functionality. Now for any e-commerce, adding a customer or inserting a customer is a very common thing, right? Either a customer can register him or herself from the website itself, or sometimes admin or help desk guy can add customer from the backend portal also, right? But for both of the location, there has to be some mechanism that inserts the data into a database table. Let's consider that they are using in the project we have used insert customer store procedure, right? So let's take an example of it now. So let me bring, I already have the code, to save time. I usually keep the code ready with me and I'll explain it what it is, right? So when, let's say we are working on the insert customer store procedure, right? So whenever you are, one thing to keep in mind that whenever you are working on insert or update store procedure, make sure your parameter name are aligned with your table column names. Like for example, we have name column, email column. So here it should be @name, email, @mobile, right? We can definitely use other also, but it is better if we use the column name same as the parameter name so that we can correlate it well when we are using it into the code further down, right? So for inserting, what we need name, email, mobile, address, is active flag. Ideally this is not required, but still we are passing. That's okay, because whenever a user is registering or a user is being added customer basically, right, that customer is by default active only, right? And then with insert store procedure, whenever you are working on insert store procedure, make sure you are, most of the time we will have to return the inserted numbers id, right? So what was the new id created for that customer, that has to return in the return to the calling program, and the calling program can be any website built in any technology, right? Now let's dive into the code further. So here, as we discussed couple of time previous also, that set no count is always a, part of better practice. Just make it set no count on, so that we are not passing the message that this many row affected or this many row affected every time. So it basically saves a little your network traffic over the wire, right? Now next big thing is to, whatever input is coming as a part of email, we will have to make sure that if that is not already there in our database, then only we should create the new customer. Otherwise we should return it with an error saying that the email is already registered, and we might have seen this on many websites where we have the register functionality, right? So if this passes, basically the validation check is done, then we should insert it into the database, and at the end we should return the newly inserted identity. Newly, so over here new customer id we are taking scope underscore identity. Now there are multiple ways of returning this. There is one more function called @ identity also, but this one we should avoid because @ identity returns actually the last id inserted. So if there is a trigger return on insert customer, and that trigger is inserting data into some customer audit or customer history table, then rather than returning the id generated for customer, that double @ identity would return the customer audit or customer history table identity, which make no sense for us. So always use whenever you are returning, and this is related to ms sql, right? If you are using mysql or oracle, we'll have to see what is there, what based option we have there, right? So here the best option is scope underscore identity, that actually returns the latest id generated over here in this scope, right? So basically between begin and end, right? So let's create this store procedure. Okay, it created successfully. Let me delete some data if I already have it, and I want to delete few data, right? Okay, so now let's use this store procedure. Now how to use it? So since we have many parameters, I'll have already created the code to how to call the store procedure. So this is our output variable. Again, this output variable name can be different, but if you can keep the same, then it is easier for some other developer also to map that what variable is used where, right? It becomes quite easy. And we can also declare individual variable for input parameter also, but as of now I am just passing directly the value, right? So let me go ahead and run this, and let me mark this out, otherwise it will not be filled. So let me go ahead and run this, and it says 13, let's say. So basically this 13 is the number, identity number, that was generated while new customer was added. So let me see this guy. So we have Vijay Patel inserted, and we have 13 number written, right? So this is an example of insert customer, right? Now let's take an example of update customer also. Right, so let me bring that code also on screen. Let me make this actually USP, and also here we are missing the default schema name, right? And over here in update, again we are passing the same input parameters, right? They are as it is, they are as the table columns, right? Make sure your input parameter should exactly match with your table column names. Name you can use differently, but it is always a better practice to give the same name, and data type and length should match exactly, right? So that's what we have done over here, right? And in this particular scenario, we can update the customer, but if you remember, we while we created the customer table, we have marked email as unique, right? So ideally email will be used as a username by the customers to log in, right? So we should not be updated email. Rest other fields can be updated, right? So I'm removing email from here, right? And one more thing is to note over here is we are returning number of rows affected, right? So this update statement, how many, when this update statement is fired, it returns the update number of rows here, right? So let me go ahead and create this store procedure, and we will see. And again, if we talk about business scenario perspective, that for example, let's say someone having a screen, maybe admin or help desk guy who can edit customer details, right? So they can edit the other thing, but not the email, right? Another example is, let's say we go to any e-commerce website, we log in, and then we see my profile kind of thing, right? My profile. So in the my profile, we should be able to update mobile address, not the email, because the website, it does not know me by our address, sorry, by name. It knows us by our email address, because that is the unique thing across the world, right? So from just the backend thing, right? So considering those, multiple places where customer can be updated, we are creating the update customer store procedure. So let me create this, and let me use it for update. And let me just bring those parameters from my insert store procedure only. um, so we have already created this 13 number guy. Let me make some modification over here. Email we are not supposed to change, so we'll remove it, and we don't have it as an input parameter also. So I'm changing this to 1 1. Surat, India, I'll say, let's say I'll make Navsari, India. This is 1. Let me make this 0, and we don't have output parameter over here. All right, so let me go ahead and run this. So it says one row affected, right? Ideally, because it only updated one row from the customer table. So let me go over here. Let's check the customer table. So see this guy. Name got updated. This we were not updating. This number got updated. Address got updated, and is active flag got also updated. Right. So this is an example of your update customer screen. Now, many a time, people create only single store procedure that handles both insert and update. And that one is my favorite also. But only thing to remember that you use that scenario only when if you have a insert and update, you want to make it one, and also in update you are updating the entire table columns. If you have such screen, if you coming from the front end, then only use that approach. Otherwise, use the insert and update separately, right? Because many a time, let's talk about just screen where customer want to just change the mobile number, right? So only to change mobile number, we should not pass every parameter. Ideally it should be just the customer ID and the mobile number, right? So let me take you to the example, and we'll understand it better. So rather than update, I'll make this as save customer. you know we will pass all the possible parameters that we have. And it is missing round bracket actually. uh, Using round bracket is always a good practice. Let me remove this, we don't need this. Let me remove this also. So we have name, email, and here we are passing id as our first parameter, integer, right? Id, name, this is this and this. Now, okay, so here we will be checking if, we will say if exist, select one from, let me just take the table name over here, from dbo dot customer, where id is equal to @id, right? So if the id we are passing from the front end exists, that means we need to update the record, right? Because it is already there. And if not, then we need to insert the record. So let me begin and end over here, and this time we are not returning anything. Let me remove this, and let me put down the insert statement over here quickly. Right. So begin and this is else. Let me align the code a little bit. Begin and this is good. Oh, yes, equal to was missing. So this is good. Okay. Name. This is good. Now, okay. So let me tell you again what we are doing over here. So if ID passed exists in the database, then we will be updating the record. If id passed does not exist in the database, right, then we will be inserting the record. So in insert, mostly people used to follow either passing 0 or -1, right? So that depends on the coding standard we are following in the project. So let me go ahead and create this store procedure. Okay, so we have a lot of error. Let me see. Yeah, first thing is that we are missing comma over here. I think that was the primary culprit. Yeah. So let me go ahead and create this. Great. Now let's try to use the same parameter over here. Now this time we need to pass the ID also. So I am passing 13 as ID. This guy, I am changing its name to original this. Let me change this number. Let me make this to back Surat, and let me make this guy active. So since 13 exit, this should fire actually update statement. So it says one row affected. Oh no, sorry. We should have used this store procedure name. It was update store procedure. We should have used this. So let me make this again, this guy. Right. So if we go out and see customer, it got updated actually, but with the update store procedure, we want to do update it with now saves customer. So whenever we are combining insert and update, I used to have a practice of giving it name as save rather than dedicated name insert or update, right? Because that makes more sense. And let me give this 3 3. Let me just take this as Baroda, and let me make this 0. So let me fire this. This should expect one more parameter. Okay. Yeah, that's what we passed. So ID, name, email. Okay, email was missing. Great. So in case of update, actually this is an extra parameter, but it saves time. Okay, so this has got executed. Let's see the record in the database table. So this is Vijay Patel updated, 3 got updated, Boda got updated, 0 got updated. Excellent. Now let's take an example where we are passing this as 0. We will have that, let's say Mahesh, let's say maybe Srivastava. And let me make this Mahesh at the rate example.com. Let me take this random number and let me make it UP, maybe let's say Mathura, UP, India, and make it 1. So now this time the ID does not exist. So ideally it should come to insert and insert the new record. So let me go ahead and run this. It says successfully executed. Now let me go over here and run this. So we have the record as Mahesh Srivastava inserted into our database table, right? So in this video we saw the example of dedicated insert SP, dedicated update SP, and we can also combine insert and update store procedure into one, but that depends on what you should be or what is followed in your project, right? But I just try to give you an example which are commonly used in many projects, right? So that's it in this video. In next video we will look at the delete customer functionality, right? So thanks a lot guys, and see you in the next video.